Okay, we'll start with this. Well, Hannah Gabriels, on the heels of her victory at both light heavyweight and heavyweight, the two titles she procured there, the WBA at light heavyweight and the WBC at heavyweight, she took to social media and had this to say. She says, "Hey Lou DiBella, let's unify this division. Who's next? Giovanna Perez, Tigresa Jimenez box, or Danielle Perkins? I want all the smoke, and I want it now."
This isn't what I expected.
I told you guys in the build-up of that fight and after that fight that I thought Hannah Gabriels would pick up those two world titles up there at light heavyweight or heavyweight, whatever the prescribed weight was. It's very confusing. But I thought she'd pick up those titles and then subsequently move back down because those are barren divisions, barren weight classes where there are barely any girls to fight. The girls that are there for Hannah to fight at or around those weights, those are all high-risk, low-reward fights.
They are.
Great fights, don't get me wrong. Gabriels versus Jimenez, Gabriels versus Perez, Gabriels versus Perkins. Those are all exciting contests.
They are.
They could all be exciting contests if they take place, though they don't offer much financial value. I didn't think Hannah was going to stay up there in those weight classes. I didn't. But I'll tell you something. I don't doubt that Hannah Gabriels wants those fights. I don't, because in many ways, the Clarissa Shields fight was a high-risk, low-reward fight. You know, it's not like Clarissa is paying these girls through the nose to have fights with her. I mean, at most, Hannah Gabriels might have made a couple hundred thou, if that, for moving up from 154 to 160 to take on Clarissa. So when she says she wants a fight with Danielle Perkins or Giovanna Perez or Alejandra Jimenez, I believe her. I actually do. I'm just surprised that she's going to be campaigning all the way up there in those divisions where there are barely any girls to fight.
Those are all dangerous fights for Hannah.
Every single one of them. But I don't doubt her desire to have those fights. I don't doubt her resolve, because she decided to have that rematch with Oxandia Castillo. Oxandia, who's very dangerous. Oxandia, who stopped her, knocked her smooth out in 2 rounds. She decided to fight her again. She decided to move up and wait for Clarissa Shields. So I do believe that Hannah wants these fights. Even more interesting is that from this account, Hannah Gabriels' manager said, "I'm Gabriels' manager."
Okay.
Just an FYI, we've reached out to her team, her being Savania Marshall, 3 weeks ago with no response. Hannah wants it.
The fight.
The ball is in their court. So let's get a look at this. Let's look. The current reigning WBA light heavyweight champion, WBC heavyweight champion, Hannah Gabriels, is looking for smoke with Danielle Perkins, looking for smoke with
Jimenez,
Alejandra Jimenez, looking for smoke with Giovanna Perez, and looking for smoke with Savannah Marshall.
She might find it.
If you think about these fights, from most dangerous to least dangerous, I'd have to say that Danielle Perkins, that's the most dangerous fight for Hannah Gabriels. Hannah, who does not have the most generous dimensions for a junior middleweight, a middleweight, a super middleweight, or a light heavyweight, let alone a heavyweight. Danielle Perkins, she's a big girl, tall drink of water. And she's a tall drink of water that can box. She's a tall drink of water that can move.
She was on the undercard of Shields versus DK.
You talk about a Gabriels versus Perkins fight, and you're quite literally talking about a David and Goliath kind of situation. A David and Goliath kind of dynamic. Except that Danielle is no lumbering lummox.
She can move.
This is a fighter with athleticism, movement, power.
She's got it.
Hannah was stopped at 154 pounds by Oxandia Castillo, a smaller woman than Danielle Perkins. That being said, if Oxandia was able to knock Hannah out in 2 rounds, what would Danielle do to her? That's the riskiest fight as far as I'm concerned. The second riskiest fight is the fight with Savannah Marshall. Savannah, like Danielle, would tower over Hannah. Hannah's not a big woman. She's meaty, and she's meaty in all the right places aesthetically, but as far as height and length, she's not a big woman at all.
You know, Savannah might knock her out, too.
Savannah, who's not as big, not as meaty as Danielle Perkins, though all the same, she packs a punch. She stopped Maria Lindbergh where Maria Lindbergh had never been stopped. We talk about Savannah's finer qualities all the time. The fact that she's not just a strong puncher, she's a very educated and light-footed boxer that's ambidextrous. She can lead with the right, she can lead with the left. I will say comparatively, there's probably more money for Hannah in a Marshall fight than there is in a Perkins fight. But better still, those are 2 very, very dangerous fights. Not much between them. You talk about a Tigresa Jimenez fight. The danger in that fight is that Tigresa Jimenez is also a bigger woman than Hannah Gabriels. She too would have a height advantage and perhaps a reach advantage as well.
She got busted for taking a banned substance.
And forget, what happened in the French on Cruz fight and what happened after that fight. I found Alejandra Jimenez's performance in that fight suspicious. The way she was able to absorb so many big right hands from what's one of the stronger punchers in the super middleweight division, French on Cruz. You're telling me that Hannah Gabriels is open to a fight with Tigresa Jimenez, who got busted for taking a banned substance. And here today, we don't know what that banned substance was. Though I think it's important to note that that information has not been disclosed. Who knows what that woman was on?
Little Hannah wants to fight her.
You know, given that Tigresa Jimenez hasn't fought since she was busted for taking a banned substance, maybe she'll entertain a fight with Hannah since nobody else is calling her out.
She ain't fought since January of last year.
Now, when it comes to Giovanna Perez, that's the least risky fight of all the aforementioned fights. The thing about Giovanna is Giovanna's retired. When things didn't materialize for that Savannah Marshall fight that was supposed to go down at 175 for Giovanna's then WBO title, Giovanna called it a career.
I don't even know if she's in the running.
Those things in mind, a Perkins fight, a Marshall fight, a Jimenez fight, all intriguing matchups, all exciting fights, and every single one of those fights is a very dangerous fight for Hannah Gabriels. I think that maybe she's deciding to stay up there, 175 or heavyweight division, however you want to put it, because she's running a scarcity of opponents at junior middleweight. Clarissa Shields holds all the world titles at 154, but Clarissa Shields is currently making an endeavor to campaign as a mixed martial artist, at least for the time being. It's not likely that Hannah gets a rematch with Clarissa, and Clarissa's got all the belts there tied up. I think maybe Hannah's making a decision to stay up there at either 175 or heavyweight because she knows that even though there aren't that many girls up there to fight, the ones that are there, you know, making those fights shouldn't be that hard. Because the girls up there can't afford to avoid each other.
Maybe that's why.
That's just my best guess. In middleweight news, a rather ridiculous set of comments from the reigning WBC champion Jermall Charlo. He says, Andrade and Benavidez, they have nothing to offer. Jermall was quoted as saying, I fight who they put in front of me. So regardless, I train hard for every fight, said Jermall Charlo to the PBC podcast on his next fight against Juan Macias Montiel on June 19th. I'm going to showcase my talent on June 19th on Showtime so you guys get a chance to see me again. I let my coach do the studying, but he, Montiel, deserves a shot.
Well, then Demetrius Andrade and David Benavidez.
Every time I get up in the morning and I look at those world titles on the ceiling, I think there's more out there. There's more to come, said Charlo when asked about how he continues to stay hungry despite making millions. I'm hungry to consider myself one of the best in the world. I'm out to fight the best out there. That's been the hardest achievement right now. My team has reached out to guys like Golovkin, Canelo, and Andrade, whoever has a belt at 160. Jermall says, Andrade and Benavidez have nothing to offer, but I thought you just said you reached out to those guys. What I do for a living, and that's fight, said Charlo. They're doing a great job of keeping him active, I guess, said Jermall when asked what is his assessment of Demetrius Andrade. You guys gotta understand that, said a defensive-sounding Charlo. It's a part of boxing. They're watering the sport down. I care about Jermall Charlo. I got a big family, big life. He, Andrade, ain't living nothing like me. The opportunity is for him. I'm the lotto ticket in his ballpark. Nobody knows Demetrius Andrade. Nobody knows when he fights, but they know Juan Montiel.
No.
And nobody cares when he fights, but they care about Juan Montiel.
No.
He ain't getting no views. Nobody cares. He ain't like that when it comes, so he's just talking. I don't know if he's serious or not, but I am. I am the champion of the world, and it's gonna stay like that. Jarrett Hurd poses no threat and doesn't have nothing to offer. Just like Benavidez, just like Andrade. It seems to me that what Jermall Charlo wants is to avoid fighting anyone with a pulse. And what we're seeing from this guy is tantamount what you'd see from a grade schooler, a child, an indecisive child who can't make up his mind and is taking a liking to fibbing and telling lies. Nobody wants to see Charlo versus Montiel.
Nobody.
If anybody's watering down the sport, it's not Demetrius Andrade, it's not David Benavidez, it's Jermall Charlo. Last year, he's the one who called out David Benavidez, not the other way around. Last year, he's the one who said he was given the green light to move up in weight, and he mentioned David Benavidez by name, only so that he could fold under the pressure of actually having to back up what he says, actually going up there and fighting that guy. That's what you said you wanted to do, isn't it?
This guy acts like a fucking little kid.
An indecisive, potty-mouthed little boy who's 30 fucking years old. You ask him about that David Benavidez fight, and he comes up with every excuse in the book not to fight him, even though he's the one who called him out. You don't want to fight Benavidez at 168. You don't want to fight Andrade at 160. You're wasting your own fucking time thinking Golovkin cares about you.
That guy got paid $14 million for Steve Rolls.
And another $14 million for Sergey Derevianchenko. Did you get $14 million for Sergey Derevianchenko? Did you get that kind of payday for fighting that guy? We all know the answer.
Fuck no.
We've been here before. We've been all through this. What's going on is going on because Jermall Charlo is getting paid a decent amount of money to fight guys that don't stand a chance. And because he's getting decent money, not great money, not the greatest money, but decent. Decent enough that he's comfortable. Because he's getting paid decent money to fight no-hopers, he doesn't see any reason to take a chance on anybody, and he claims that it's everybody else that's watering down the sport. Who has this man been fighting? Hugo Centeno, Jorge Sebastian Hyland, Dennis Hogan, Brandon Adams. And we're supposed to be over the moon that you fought Sergey Derevianchenko. Was that before or after Danny Jacobs and Gennady Golovkin got through with him?
He's about to fight's a step down from Sergey.
This guy's entire middleweight campaign has been one big fucking prelude with no climax. When Matchroom offered this guy a multi-million-dollar payday for what was a one-off, the same kind of one-off that Jose Ramirez fought in when he took on Maurice Hooker. They make him that deal to come over, have that one off on their side of things. He doesn't want to do that. They offer to send Demetrius Andrade to him on his side of things, and he doesn't want to do that either. And he doesn't want to fight his stablemate, David Benavidez. Listen, this isn't about politics and platforms anymore. At this point, it's just that Jermall Charlo doesn't want to fight anybody. We just saw Brian Castaño go over to the Golden Boy Promotions, the zone side of things, for a title shot against Patrick Teixeira. He wins the title, he goes back to his side of the street, and he's about to participate in a unification match with Jermall Charlo. So it's not even political boundary lines anymore. It's just that Jermall Charlo, among several others, doesn't want to fight anyone. You're saying you're too good for David Benavidez. You're saying you're too good for Demetrius Andrade. If that's the case, then Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin are too good for you.
See how that works?
You and your 100,000 pay-per-view buys, and I can't wait to see what astronomical numbers that Juan Montiel fight brings in. Yeah. If you're saying that you're not going to fight those guys, Andrade, Benavidez, or Hurd, you're saying you're not going to fight those guys because you're too good for them, that would make Golovkin and Canelo too good for you. You're not a top earner like they are. You don't move the units that they move. That gives them every precedence to skip over you until they feel like fighting you.
How you like them apples?
And finally, I'm sure that most of you have heard by now, Billy Joe Saunders' ring issue has since been resolved. As of yesterday, Canelo Alvarez was quoted as saying, "I don't care about the size of the ring. I'm just going to go in there and do my job." It's not the only excuse he's had. He's had plenty of excuses. He has to fight Saturday. The fight's going to happen. That's not a problem. To which Billy Joe Saunders replied, "I'm pleased the issue is sorted. The ring is not a problem. Thumbs are up. Eddie Hearn, get the ring in, mate." Do I honestly believe that
The ring.
all of this was in reference to the size of the ring that Billy Joe Saunders would be fighting Canelo Alvarez in? No, I don't.
Not really.
The size of the ring ain't the only thing that Billy Joe Saunders has been complaining about. There have been a lot of complaints in the buildup of this fight coming from the Saunders people. And my interpretation of those complaints is that Billy Joe Saunders is shrinking on what is set to be the biggest stage he's ever fought on. What are we talking about? 68 to 70,000 screaming boxing fans, most of which are Canelo fans, as Billy Joe Saunders fights abroad on foreign soil in a fight that he's really not favored to win anyway.
That's it.
There are a lot of people that think that all of this, everything we've been seeing as of late,
But these are mind games.
there's this prevalent theory going around that every gypsy is a mentalist.
It's all mind games, bro.
How
exactly?
Billy Joe Saunders making himself look like a whining, crying, peeing, shitting baby, crybaby?
Mind games.
What about that is a mind game?
What's it do?
What, because you're aggravating Canelo with your constant complaints?
What, you want to make him mad?
By pushing for a bigger ring so you can do what? What you were going to do anyway?
Yeah, I don't understand.
Asking for a bigger ring and having your dad bring up Canelo's sordid history with banned substances, accusing him of loading his raps in big fights. All of this is intended to do what to Canelo Alvarez? Get him angry? Get him upset? You know, Abel Sanchez, he took a similar route. He took a similar course of action. He wanted to get under Canelo Alvarez's skin. ahead of that Gennady Golovkin rematch. And we saw that, Canelo Alvarez was a lot more aggressive in that rematch. He didn't spend the second fight on his back foot the way he did the first fight. He brought it to Gennady Golovkin. In the eyes of a lot of people, he won the second fight more decisively than what took place in the first fight. A lot of people, myself included, don't think he won that first fight. But that second fight, that was something else. And that performance was likely fueled by Abel Sanchez doing to Canelo what Tom Saunders and Billy Joe Saunders have been doing to Canelo, pissing him off. And that's even assuming that what we've been seeing are in fact mind games from the Saunders people. Mind games intended to throw Canelo Alvarez off his game and make him upset. Even if that's the end game of what we're seeing, I don't see how that would help Billy Joe Saunders. Moreover, I fail to see how it's tricky gypsy magic to have Tyson Fury and Tom Saunders lambasting Eddie Hearn for promoting Canelo? Or for promoting Canelo more than promoting Billy? I mean, how's that going to affect Canelo?
Yeah.
How does complaining about the size of the audience, those in attendance, all that stuff, how's that intended to affect Canelo and his performance?
What's that, though?
If these are, in fact, mind games from the tricksy gypsies.
You're bad-mouthing Eddie to affect Canelo.
So wait, let me get this straight. That's not you being a crybaby. That's not you bitching and moaning at every turn. What that was is you attempting to affect Canelo's psyche ahead of this fight by bad-mouthing Eddie Hearn in reference to his treatment of you. All of this is intended to affect Canelo.
All right then.
All right. I mean, I have bumped into one or two people that have told me this, that these are just mind games from the Saunders people, all of it. And if these are mind games, and if they are, I don't know what the end game is going to be, aside from a very aggravated Canelo Alvarez who's likely going to take it out on Billy Joe Saunders, where this was just a fight before another fight, any other fight. You wanted to make Canelo angry.
You think that improves his chances?
I don't know, I guess it depends on who you ask, but you're asking me whether this is just Saunders being a sourpuss or, being a mentalist. Either way, I don't think it's going to bode well for Billy. Mind games or not, I don't think it's helping his situation.
I don't really see how it would.